Yeah.
Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All with Dr. Scott Walter. We are going to talk Starlink today, but first of all, if you're at the X Takeover, come join us. San Luis Obispo. A huge shout out to Nova and Robin though first because wow.
Wow. Man,
this is a place to test out Starlink, man.
Right.
And
Okay.
do anything else, really, honestly.
Now we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and it's cloudy. Well, okay, the sun's finally coming through, but without the sun, we have no idea which is the north-south. So normally you look for a weather vane, right?
Exactly.
And if you look at someone's weather vane, you can tell north and south.
Right.
But the idea is that if someone's got a Starlink antenna like we have over there,
one would think that would be facing north.
It's supposed to be north. So
It's
as far
not.
as we're concerned, that's north, and the sun just peeked out. Wait a minute,
Wait a
and it's just
second.
kind of rising from that way.
Yeah.
I think
We got problems.
north is this way. So
It is, definitely.
we're going to run a little experiment because this is rather interesting to see whether they mounted that incorrectly.
Right.
Because I brought my dish along as well.
And so yours is actuated. So
It's
this one will
actuated.
actually orient
Right,
itself
right.
towards the horizon.
Now it's pointed this way, and I'm going to go ahead and
Let's fire it up.
reboot it right now, which means
Okay.
it'll take a few minutes. And while we're doing that,
Right.
we're going to take a look at the Starlink Mini at
Yes,
the same time.
absolutely.
So what we're going to do is we're going to unstow this thing.
And by the way, I'm going to put in a little insert shot. Okay, so there it
Yep.
is, unstowed. I'm going to put in an insert shot of what Robin and Nova's Starlink shows, which
Yes.
is really interesting because it actually is facing west, which we have never seen before.
Okay,
But
now
it's possible.
Now I think we
over
need
the
to do a
Pacific.
reboot because it may be confused from where I moved it before. So I'm just going to go ahead and reboot and see if it goes through this whole sequence.
So we got the nice Starlink app there. Makes
Yep.
it all very easy. This is the older actuated version, by the way. With the newer one that's not actuated, the app will actually show you. It shows you how to orient it.
Yeah, and we can show that with even the
Mini.
newest one. So
Okay.
so the new one that's unactuated is bigger than this dish.
Yeah.
The standard.
Right, and flatter.
But now there's a mini, which is also flatter and very
Right.
easy to mount in your car.
Exactly.
And that's what we're going to
And
take a look
Scott's
at
got,
right now.
just in case you think Scott's not an engineer, he's engineered us a solution here.
Okay,
Or
so
himself.
the solution is pretty easy. So we
And
can
you've driven this cross country, right, from Florida to California.
from Florida. So
Yep.
I've mounted everything here under the glass, and it
Right.
does work under the glass, which everyone was concerned that
Which is
tinting would do
pretty
something
cool.
with it.
Yeah.
Yes, and of course I made sure that the sunshade that I put in here is only a half sunshade,
Right.
so I can actually mount it and move it around. And a couple of the questions is where do you get the power from?
Right.
And it does have a small little power brick that you plug into a 110.
Which would normally go into a 110,
Right,
but
now, okay, so I just went ahead and get some suction cups. It turns out it's difficult to find the suction cups in the store now
Right.
because they're an item that doesn't move enough. You have to actually find them online.
Yeah.
You can get these things here, which are just like for the shower,
Right.
that are not going to be strong enough. But I have them for a reason that we'll see why.
Yeah.
And then I just jury-rigged something here to be able to connect them
Some
together.
bungee cords.
Yeah. However, I've seen some people that there's like cargo netting you can have for kayaks and stuff like that.
Oh,
that might also
interesting.
be the right size. So you can engineer anything you want. Just get a couple of
Right,
suction
but these
cups.
guys you can get on Amazon. In fact, I'll put a link to something like that
There's
on
plenty of them
if
out
you're
there.
interested.
Okay, so now basically,
So look at the size of this first of all.
Right.
And this includes the router inside it. So the Wi-Fi router is built in.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It's what does it weigh? Maybe a couple pounds? I mean, it's very light.
It's very light.
Yeah.
What you can see here, and it has a kickstand. So normally when you put it in the ground, you do something like this.
Right.
And the app will then tell you how you are pointing this.
Correct.
And it'll keep on telling you rotate it, rotate it, rotate it. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Now the reason for the kickstand is you don't want this perfectly flat.
Right.
And you prefer to have it kind of pointing north.
Yep.
And the reason is that you have a geosynchronous band of satellites that you don't want to transmit to for interference.
Right. And that tends to be in the northern hemisphere. That's towards the south.
Yes, that's toward the south. So if you're perfectly this way, you may be broadcasting them, which means you're losing some of your spectrum. And we're going to
Exactly.
see in that picture how
Right.
there's actually some an exclusion, which is really cool.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
by
yeah.
facing north, you don't have to worry about that exclusion zone, and you can get a broader field of view of all the Starlink satellites. And we'll look at the app that's showing how many are going overhead in a
Right.
second.
Right.
Now, how do we power this thing? Well, right in the back here, there's a barrel jack.
It's very simple.
And
So this was something you bought yourself.
I
not
bought this
something- Yeah.
on Amazon.
And again, I'll get a link to
it's
that. So if you want to get this, you can just.
It's a
click the link
10-footer, which is about the right length. There's some that are 4
Right.
feet that might be just kind of really tight to go from the 12 volt
Right.
you have in here or the
Yeah.
12 volt you have. Now the Cybertruck is going to be different. The Cybertruck does not have this, but it does have a 110, so you don't have to
Does
do
that,
anything.
it has a 110 in the front, right? That you can plug in.
Yeah, somewhere.
if you
I think it has a 110.
Yeah.
It also has a USB PD, and you'd have to find the cables for those. Are rare and hard to
Right.
find.
Oh, that
But
goes to a barrel jack. Yeah.
This barrel jack is 5.5 by 2.1. And
did you measure that, or did you see the specs in the?
Saw the specs.
Okay,
saw the specs. And then you just pop it in there, and that'll be good enough.
Ta-da!
And
that's it. And it's just
go
got a power button. Is that like the only thing that's on there?
No, there is no power button.
Just a.
This here is the output for if you want to connect Ethernet.
Oh, so it's got live Ethernet. Wow.
Yeah,
so
you can do that.
You can do direct routing.
Yes.
Wow.
So if you want to connect it to another kind of router.
That is cool.
Now this thing is amazing when you set it up. We've been able to pick up the Wi-Fi signal from 500 feet away.
Wow.
Easily. And not only that,
we did that actually when you were at Meteor Crater in that other video. You walked a pretty good distance away before it started getting choppy.
Now we did a crazier thing the next day.
Yeah.
Is I met up with the Michigan contingent.
Right.
And we were driving down the mountain because we couldn't get 5G.
Right.
And Kenneth in front of me and Kelly behind me, Kelly and Bert behind me, were both picking up my Wi-Fi signal. Whoa. And so all 3 cars were using this.
That's crazy.
Later on, Kenneth and I decided to do a video chat over X.
Right.
And he didn't have his antenna up.
Right.
But he was close enough to pick up my Wi-Fi.
So wait, you were both doing it off the same?
And
there's some irony to that.
Yes.
Going up to the satellites.
Yes. And Tesla Granny Karen, she videoed that whole thing going on. So we will have the proof. So even though he didn't have it, by going off of my Wi-Fi. So it went from my phone to this Wi-Fi here, up the satellite, down to a ground station, off to an X server somewhere, back to the ground station, back up the satellite, down to here, and then the Wi-Fi signal would go over to the car where Kenneth was. And meanwal, his is doing the same thing.
You could have talked to each other.
We were. We
no, I'm saying you could have yelled at each other.
We could use soup cans. Yeah, exactly. At that point, it would work. But and there was like no latency, so it's just amazing that works. And through this, you'd think it'd be a Faraday cage, and that this would be blocking the signal.
Right.
But everything was going great. So that's what we can do. Now let's see.
I don't know. I can't. We'll have to go take a look.
Now the only reason for these last ones here, is they were just there to keep this from sliding out. That's all.
Right.
That's the only reason for that.
All right. Let's
go. Let's take a look. Sure enough.
Oh my goodness. What is that? That is very...
It decided to face in that direction.
Wow.
And now,
this is incredibly unusual,
if we look at the app...
In the Northern Hemisphere...
We can see here in the app, it shows us which direction, and it's deciding to face west.
Yeah.
Now,
so his was actuated too. That's why I thought he had the newer one that you had to set, and that's why he said he just put it up. So clearly, I think there's a hawk on there. Is that a hawk?
Oh, it could be.
You get a little bonus.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. That's beautiful.
Okay, now, why on the West Coast would it do that?
Because that is not the case anywhere else. We have tried it, well, on the east at least.
Yes, so in Florida and in Georgia, it faces due north, which makes absolute sense.
Which I thought was the only choice.
Right. I would have thought you could go a little bit to the east for the same reason. Now, the reason they're doing it here is that I have a feeling, well, you've got all these satellites.
If you face that direction, you've got nothing but the Pacific Ocean over there.
Yes, and those satellites are not being used.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you bounce off of those satellites and get more usage out of them while they're over the Pacific, rather than taking the ones that are over land that you would want to use for the interior part. So that just comes down to that they kind of know, depending upon where you are, the GPS coordinates is going to decide what is more favorable. Even though by doing that, you're giving it a little bit of into the band of the GSO.
Exactly. Well, that's the really interesting part, is because facing west, you can see it's got the northern part and then a little chunk at the very, very south, but there's a big band that's obviously
and after
missing.
the edit, you're going to show the
I'll overlay that with
and it's not actually an obstruction, but it's in there. It'll take about 12 hours for mine to produce it. Usually it takes a while for it to create the obstruction map. But yeah, and somewhere in here, and we'll take a quick look, we can get an idea of how many satellites there are.
Oh yeah, we should definitely look at that while we're at it.
Yeah, so let's go ahead. I'm going to get the sky view here.
Let's see. We're going to do phone on phone.
Phone on phone. So you see those red dots there?
Yep.
That's where the satellites are. Let's see, there must be some more over there.
There's one that's directly overhead.
Yeah, we're looking overhead. We're picking up some over there. We're going off that way. Right. There's quite a lot. Yep. To the north.
Oh yeah, the north has a lot. Now, even though the thing's facing west, it still picks up a lot of satellites to the north.
Now, some of those satellites, even though they're kind of showing up, they may be like way over the horizon and further away than they want. So I don't think you have a pick of all of those.
Right. Not sure if this is picking this up well, but anyway.
Yeah, but we do see there's quite a lot of red dots of Starlink satellites.
Yeah,
around there, and I think
right
over there we get the moon.
We got a beautiful shot of the moon too.
Yes.
So there we go. Yeah. But yeah, this is just fascinating. We were completely intrigued by the fact that his dish was facing to the west.
Yeah.
Since that is out of our ken, but very cool that you get west facing. So obviously, SpaceX they're a bunch of rocket scientists, so they know what they're doing. So they're like, if it can face west and get better pickup, then it's going to face west and get better pickup.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's just. So I think maybe 5 miles that direction is the ocean.
Is the ocean?
It's very close.
Yeah, except for cruise liners, there's no one out there using it.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so
the
they've got
aircraft
an
that's
unrestricted.
flying that way.
So basically, I wonder if you went, because facing north, of course, this way would be San Francisco, and that's going to have high competition.
And it might be the same thing in San Francisco. They might have a lot of the dishes.
Yeah, exactly.
And as you get more and more inland, it might kind of
shifts over.
Yeah. And, if you're in Colorado, it makes more sense just to look north.
Well, actually, I was wondering, like, if people are in Nevada or in the Central Valley in California, if you can like leave comments, like how yours is facing. If you just take the
and when I
compass
head
out.
home, I'm just going to start setting this up to kind of
it'll be really interesting. So I don't know if we're talking about like within 20 miles inland, it will start facing north, or whether it's like this, and then it eventually kind of just rotates from the west to the north over time.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Now I'm surprised. I wonder on the East Coast why it wouldn't face more eastward.
Well, maybe if you're on the, I mean, we're not on the coast. You're in Tampa.
We're on the Gulf Coast, and it
no,
faces
but like,
north,
let's say you were in Jacksonville or something.
Yeah.
Maybe it faces. We should ask Chuck Cook I don't know if Chuck has a Starlink, but
he might. But the next time I head over there and I bring that up, but I think every time I set it up over in Cape Canaveral,
it does north.
It seems like it tends to go north. So that's why I was surprised to see that on this coast it would be a little bit different.
Right.
But it may also have to do with the bunching of the geosynchronous satellites. That I don't think you necessarily have a band that goes all the way around. Maybe you do, but there's like a fewer number of them over the Pacific as they would be over a continental area.
Oh, that's true, because a lot of them are, there's a lot, of course, over the United States.
Right. And I think some of them are like parked almost like
right over the Gulf. But then some are probably right over the middle of the Atlantic also, which would mean that they would be.
Yeah, it'd be more like probably the Gulf of Mexico to just kind of hit the Americas. And then
but also you want that transcontinental one, so they go between like Europe and US. You'd have one parked right in the middle of the Atlantic, which would make it.
And then we'll have some that will be there for being able to do weather and other things, but they'd probably be sparse compared to communication. So the old see, is that a geosynchronous set? See, that one is no. Oh, I
think he said that was a microwave.
That was the microwave. Okay. So this is what he explained. He's very rural, so you can't get decent fiber here.
Yeah.
If you take a look,
this is San Luis Obispo, by the way, which is where the
So if you're not right in town, you can't get it. And this is like your only choice. And the only other way you do it is you have to set up like a microwave link on your property that hits some tower over somewhere else.
Right.
And those are expensive. So I know someone else that lives in sort of rural Washington State.
Right.
And the same thing is that the trenching would be so expensive to do it that he could not get a decent rate. And they were trying to use repeaters like that, and just it wasn't working out.
Right.
So he went ahead and got Starlink, and it's much better.
This is the kind of thing where I think people think about countries that are undeveloped and stuff, and how Starlink is advantageous. But in the United States, there are a lot of people who live in situations just like this.
Well, you
including
do too.
Me. I'm in an urban environment, but because of just the vagaries of how they lay trenching down, I don't have access to good internet.
The fact that you're in a subdivision that's maybe was built in the last 10, 20 years or something like that.
It was about 20 years old.
About 20 years old, and at that point it was consired really rural, and they hadn't set up the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So they laid the power lines, but they didn't lay the fiber and everything else, and they just. The economies of scale aren't working out there yet.
Exactly.
And eventually they will. And I'm seeing the same where I am is, it's really, they're doing a horrible job of laying the cables down. I've posted on X how bad it is that they were supposed to put it underground and they couldn't, and they're trying to do it again. And all my neighbors are losing connectivity all the time. And even when you do have connectivity, it's not competing with that. Believe it or not, it's just not competing.
No, in terms of latency and stuff, Starlink, and it's only going to get better because the more satellites they chuck up into space,
now the only problem is that there is a limitation to the number you can have in a certain geographic region.
Yes.
And so if all my neighbors decided to go with Starlink, they would be declined because there's full capacity right now. Exactly. So my cell is filled out.
Right.
And they have to suffer with the cable, fiber, whatever they have. If you're in an urban environment, you're going to get real high-speed fiber because you happen to be close to the backbone.
Right.
Now, in my case, I get one shot and I'm down on a backbone.
Right. In Atlanta, right?
Generally? In Atlanta.
Yeah.
That is so fast that my Teams calls are better than they ever were before, because I wasn't bouncing around from node to node till they finally hit the backbone. It's like directly to it.
Yeah.
And that really amazed me on what was going up and down. Again, the explanation I did with Kenneth.
Yeah.
What's going on when you think about all these packets, we're sending a packet to a Wi-Fi up and down and back and forth. And both of us are looking at it, and the video stream quality was good. Yeah. And remember, this was X video streams, which is usually considered to be so.
It's got some work to do.
It's got some work to do, and it was still working fine.
Right, right. Wow, this is going to be a beautiful day. I love that the marine layer, as we've been talking, has been slowly backing off.
Yeah, I might actually have to put my sunscreen on.
Yeah, there we go. Well, I'm planning on when I get done with work, I'm going to go for a hike.
So anyway,
oops.
the two know-it-alls here. Yeah.
So again, a big thanks to Nova and to Robin for this, and a big thanks to John and Kelvin and all the folks at Tesla Silicon Valley for making this all happen. We're excited to see folks this afternoon, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.